everyone. Today we are going to read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I'm directly going to start from the first part, which is Paradigms and Principles. The book is divided into several parts. We have part 1, Paradigms and Principles, part 2, Private Victory, part 3, Public Victory, part 4, Renewal, and then we have Inside Out again. So we have 7 habits here, as the name suggests. So we are going to start from Paradigm and Principles. Part 1, Paradigms and Principles. Inside Out. There's no real excellence in all this world which can be separated from right living. David Starr Jordan. In more than 25 years of working with people in business, university, marriage, and family setting, I've come in contact with many individuals who have achieved an incredible degree of outward success but have found themselves struggling with an inner hunger, a deep need for personal congruency and effectiveness, and for healthy and growing relationships with other people. I suspect some of the problems they have shared with me may be familiar to you. I've set and met many career goals, and I've had tremendous professional success, but it cost me my personal and family life. I don't know my wife and children anymore. I'm not even sure I know myself. What's really important to me? I've asked myself, is it worth it? I've started a new diet for the 5th time this year. I know I'm overweight and I really want to change. I read all the new information. I set goals. I get myself all psyched up with positive mental attitude and tell myself I can do it. But I don't. After a few weeks, I fizzle. I just can't seem to keep a promise I make to myself. I've taken course after course on effective management training. I respect a lot of my employees and I work hard to be friendly towards them and treat them right. But I don't feel any loyalty from them. I think if I were homesick for a day, they'd spend most of their time gabbing at the water fountain. Why can't I train them to be independent and responsible, or find employees who can be? My teenage son is rebellious and on drugs. No matter what I try, he won't listen to me. What can I do? There's so much to do, and there's never enough time. I feel pressurized and hassled all day, every day, 7 days a week. I've attended management seminars, and I've tried half a dozen different planning systems. They've helped some, but I don't feel I'm living happy, productive, peaceful life I want to live. I want to teach my children the value of work, but to get them to do anything, I have to supervise every move and put up with the complaining every step of the way. It's so much easier to do it myself. Why can't children do their work cheerfully and without being reminded? I'm busy, really busy, but sometimes I wonder if what I'm doing will make any difference in the long run. I'd really like to think that there was meaning in my life, that somehow things were different. But because I was here, I see my friends or relatives achieve some degree of success or receive some recognition, and I smile and congratulate them enthusiastically. But inside, I'm eating my heart out. Why do I feel this way? I have a forceful personality. I think in almost any interaction, I control the outcome. Most of the time, I can even do it by influencing others to come up with the solution I want. I think through each situation, and I feel the ideas I come up with are usually the best for everyone. But I feel uneasy. I always wonder what other people really think of me and my ideas. My marriage has gone flat. We don't fight or anything. We just don't love each other anymore. We've gone to counseling, we've tried a number of things, but we just can't seem to rekindle the same feeling we used to have. These are deep problems, painful problems that quick fix approaches can't solve. A few years ago, my wife Sandra and I were struggling with this kind of concern. One of our sons was having a very difficult time in school. He was doing poor academically. He didn't even know how to follow the instructions on the tests, let alone do well on them. Socially, he was immature, often embarrassing the closest to him. Athletically, he was small, skinny, uncoordinated. Swinging his baseball bat, for an example, almost before the ball was even pitched, others would laugh at him. Sandra and I were consumed with a desire to help him. We felt that if success was important in any area of life, it was supremely important in our role of parents. So we worked on our attitudes and behaviors towards him. We tried to work on his. We attempted to psych him up using positive mental techniques. Come on, son, you can do it. We know you can. Put your hands a little higher on the bat. Keep your eyes on the ball. Don't swing till it gets close to you. And if it did a little better, we would go to lengths. We would go to great lengths to reinforce him. That's good, son. Keep it up. When others laughed, we reprimanded them. Leave him alone. Get off his back. He's just learning. And our son would cry and insist that he'd never be good at anything. And he doesn't like baseball anyways. Nothing we did seemed to help, and we were really worried. We could see the effect this was having on his self-esteem. We tried to be encouraging, helpful, and positive. But after repeated failure, we finally drew back and tried to look at a situation on a different level. At this time in my professional role, I was involved in leadership development with various clients throughout the country. In that capacity, I was preparing bi-monthly programs on the subject of communication and perception for IBM's Executive Development Program participants. As I researched and prepared these presentations, I became particularly interested in how perceptions are formed, how they govern what we see, and how they are gonna govern how we behave. This led me to study of expectancy theory and self-fulfilling prophecies, or the Pygmalion effect, and to a realization of how deeply embedded our perceptions are. It taught me that we must look at the lens through which we see the world, as well as the world we see, and the lens itself shapes how we interpret the world. As Sandra and I talked through the concepts I was teaching at the IBM and about our situation, we began to realize that what we were doing to help our son was not in harmony with the way we really saw him. When we honestly examined our deepest feelings, we realized that our perception was that he was basically inadequate, somehow behind. No matter how much we worked on our attitude, behavior, our efforts were ineffective because, despite our actions and our words, what we really communicated to him was, "You aren't capable, you have to be protected." We began to realize that if we wanted to change the situation, we first had to change ourselves. And to change ourselves effectively, we first had to change our perceptions. The personality and character ethics. At the same time, in addition to my research on perception, I was also deeply immersed in the in-depth study of successful literature published in the United States since 1776. I was reading or scanning literally hundreds of books, articles, essays in the field, such as self-improvement, popular psychology, and self-help. At my fingertips was the sum and substance of what was a free and democratic people considered to be the key to successful living. As my study took me back through 200 years of writing about success, I noticed a startling pattern emerging in the contents of literature. Because of our own pain and because of similar pains I've seen in the lives and relationships of many people that I had worked with through the years, I began to feel more and more that much of the literature of the past 50 years was superficial. It was filled with social image consequence. It was filled with social image, consciousness techniques, and quick fixes, with social band-aids and aspirin that address the acute problems and sometimes even appear to solve them temporarily, but left the underlying chronic problems untouched to fester and resurface time and time again. In stark contrast, almost all the literature in the first 150 years or so focused on what can be called the character ethic as the foundation of success. Things like integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule. Benjamin Franklin's autobiography is a representation of this literature. It is basically the story of one man's effort to integrate certain principles and habits deep within his nature. The character ethic taught that there are basic principles of effective living and that people can only experience true success and enduring happiness as they learn and integrate these principles into their basic character. But shortly after World War I, the basic view of success shifted from the character ethic to what we might call the personality ethic. Success became more a function of personality, of public image, of attitude and behaviors, skills and techniques that lubricate the process of human interaction. The personality ethic essentially took two paths. One was human and public relations techniques, and the other was positive mental attitude, PMA. So this philosophy was expressed in inspiring and sometimes violent maxims such as your attitude determines your altitude. Smiling wins more friends than frowning, and whatever the mind of man can conceive, believe, it can achieve. Other parts of the personality approach was clearly manipulative, even deceptive, encouraging people to use techniques to get other people to like them, or to fake interest in the hobbies of others to get out of them what they wanted, or to use the power look, or to intimidate their way through life. So this literature acknowledged character as an ingredient of success, but tended to compartmentalize it rather than recognize it as the foundational and catalytic. Reference to character ethic became more and more mostly lip service. The basic thrust was quick fix, influence techniques, power strategies, communication skills, and positive attitude. This personality ethic, I began to realize, was the subconscious source of the solution Sandra and I were attempting to use with our son. As I thought more deeply about the difference between the personality and character ethic, I realized that Sandra and I had been getting social mileage out of our children's good behavior, and in our eyes, this son simply didn't measure up. Our image of ourselves and our role as good caring parents was even deeper than our image of our son, and perhaps influenced it. There was a lot more wrapped up in the way we were seeing and handling the problem that our concern for our son's welfare. As Sandra and I talked, we became painfully aware of the powerful influence of our own character and motives, and of perception of him. We knew that social comparison motives were out of harmony with our deeper values and could lead to conditional love and eventually to our son's lessened sense of worth. So we determined to focus our efforts on us, not on our techniques but our deepest motives and our perception of him. Instead of trying to change him, we tried to stand apart, to separate us from him, and to sense his identity, individuality, separateness, and worth. Though deep thought and exercise of faith and prayer, we began to see our son in terms of his own uniqueness. We saw within him layers and layers of potential that would be realized at his own pace and speed. We decided to relax and get out of his way and let his own personality emerge. We saw our natural role as to affirm and enjoy his value. We also consistently worked on our motives and cultivated internal sources of security so that our own feeling of worth were not dependent on our children's acceptable behavior. As we loosened up our old perception of our son and developed value-based motives, new feelings began to emerge. We found ourselves enjoying him instead of comparing or judging him. We stopped trying to clone him in our own image or measure him up against social expectations. We stopped trying to kindly, positively manipulate him into socially acceptable mold because we saw him as fundamentally adequate and able to cope with life. We stopped protecting him against the ridicule of others. He has been nurtured on this protection, so he went through some withdrawal pains, which he expressed and which we accepted but not necessarily responded to. We don't need to protect you was the unspoken message. You are fundamentally okay. As the weeks and months passed, he began to feel quite confidence and affirmed himself. He began to bloom at his own pace and speed. He began outstanding as measured by social criteria, academically, socially, athletically, at a rapid clip, far beyond the so-called natural development process. As the years passed, he was elected to several student body leadership positions, developed into all-state athlete, started bringing home straight A report cards. He developed an engaging and guileless personality that enabled him to relate in non-threatening ways to all kinds of people. Sandra and I believe that our son's socially impressive accomplishments were more of a serendipitous expression of the feeling he had about himself than merely a response to social reward. This was an amazing experience for Sandra and me, and a very instructional one in dealing with our other children and in other roles as well. It brought to our awareness on very personal level the vital difference between personality ethic and character ethic of success. The psalmist expressed their conviction as well. Search your own heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life.